Good evening and welcome to the November 21st regular board meeting. Michelle, would you call the roll, please?
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. And if you will all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve minutes from the October 14th special board, 15th Finance Committee meeting, the October 17th special board meeting, and October 17th regular board meeting, and the October 29th Policy and Governance Committee meeting?
I'll move.
Mr. Campbell, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mooring? Any changes at all, corrections, additions, anything? Okay. You want to call the roll?
Antonio?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Chrysler?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
You might notice that name tag says Steve Vasic, and obviously Michelle is not Steve Vasic. This is our assistant treasurer who's here tonight. We are on to the school and community reports and presentations section of the agenda, and I think first we have a presentation from Royal Manor Elementary. Ms. Lopez, I don't know if you want to introduce or have the kids introduce everybody who's here with you.
My name is Jacob Ashton, and I am in Miss Groombaum's class in Royal Manor.
My name is Oliver Faust, and I am in Miss Groombaum's class from Royal Manor too.
And I'm Mrs. Grumbaum. So we are excited to be here tonight. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit of the great things we have going on at Royal Manor. I had a group of teachers who came to me last year and asked me if we could do a science night. We had never done a science night at Royal Manor, and they were super enthusiastic about it, and so I said, let's try it. So we tried it, and we had over 300 people there last year. Well, the hallways were packed. We had all different kinds of groups come in, elephant toothpaste experiment in the gymnasium. It was just phenomenal. So it was really cool. They came back again maybe towards the end of the year and said, hey, we kind of want to turn our science night into a STEM night. What do you think? And I said, well, what are your ideas? And they said, well, they shared some, and I said, go for it. Sounds awesome. So if you know Royal Manor teachers, you know they work very hard every day. And I tried to get them to not work most of July so that they could be, rejuvenated and ready to go in August. So I told them they could not be in the building for most of July. And so they snuck over to Clark Hall to do planning for STEM night. They weren't in the building, though. Yes, they weren't in the building, but they started that planning in the summer and have worked very hard, got a lot of people involved, which Mrs. Grumbaum and the boys are going to share with you. But first we have some.
We're going to start with the video. This is a video from the night. We took pictures. We got some from Mr. Judy over there and from parents and video clips. I just want to share a bit about it. It's only about a minute and a half. Do I have to hit it? Our goal for STEM Night was to give families an opportunity to explore ideas in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but also allow the families time together. In our busy lives right now, we don't have a lot of time with families. And we wanted to give something that was accessible to make sure the activities and stations were accessible to everybody, any age, any parent, any education. Of course, this night could not have been possible without the generous donation from GJEF. They gave us a grant, which gave us the financial stability to be able to buy all the items we had for that night. Our awesome staff, like she said, we met in July. We put estimated over 150 hours as a staff for this night. Andrea McConnell with Thermo Fisher donated one of the stations and provided us with 8 postdoctorates who were Ask a Scientist. And they got asked some very interesting questions, but they did a great job. Mayor Nealon did a great job. He helped us out with Dave from Suburban Steel volunteered, and Kose set up a table. We also had middle school robotics team volunteer. High school robotics team was there. Kelly Lewis from the high school came up with 15 volunteers, 11 bioscience, 2 teaching professionals, 2 architecture students, and Lori Wather helped us with the Boy Scout 98. Without all of them, the night couldn't have happened. We needed all the help we could get. The night was full of families enjoying themselves. I don't know if you heard them laughing. It was great to walk around and see moms, dads, kids all doing the activities. The math games we did were things that could go home and they could play at home also. Wasn't difficult. And the STEM night was basically for the We Are family. That's our school policy. We want to bring families in. We want to keep it a community thing because teaching and parents and kids, it's one big family. These are 2 of my students who got to enjoy the evening. They got lucky enough to come talk, and they're going to share what they liked about the night. You need to lower it. Smile.
The most interesting part of the night was the prisms. When I was shining the light on the prisms, it made it reflect 3 different ways. I enjoyed it with my friend and my mom.
My favorite part was the toning fork, and when you hit it on the table and put it in the water, it like splashed water everywhere. And that was my most favorite part.
So we want to thank Mrs. Lopez and all the staff and community members for helping us have a great night with our families. Thanks.
Thanks for coming in to show us what you did, guys. What grades are you in, boys? Both of you are in 4th grade. Yeah. Thank you for coming here tonight. Thank you to your parents, too, for bringing you. I know it's a busy week.
Yes, thanks so much. And it really was a community event. It was great to see high school, middle school kids there. They were excited to show the kids the robots that they made and the different activities that they did. So thanks for all you did to make this happen, Wendy, and the community engagement was unbelievable. So, and it was a good night. And Mayor Nealon, as she mentioned, got COSI to come, and usually they charge, I think, $700 or $800, right? And they came for free. So
Nice.
that was really cool. Thank you very much.
Very nice. So next, I don't think the agenda is quite right. We have not Ryan, but Brian Antrim here. Way back there. I didn't see you. You disappeared. And I think we also have one of our bus drivers is here tonight, too. I don't want to pronounce the name incorrectly. Can you pronounce your name for me? I don't want to say your name wrong. B2? Shifro? Okay. So I don't know if you both want to come up. And I don't think the microphone's on anymore. There it is.
Hi, folks. I'm Brian Antrim. I am a middle school East PE teacher and cross-country coach. So this story, I don't want to take up too much time, but I feel like it has to be told. B2, if you don't want to stand, you can sit here. B2 doesn't even know why he's here tonight. B2 Shifru, I just wanted to publicly thank this man for who he is, for the job that he did for me and my team. And there's a story behind that. I don't even think he remembers me.
I know it. One of the coaches, I think.
But that doesn't matter. because what matters is what I remember. Here come the tears. So if you want to stand here, you can.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So there's a couple things I want to say before I go into the story. Number one, I was sitting back in the back, and I'm looking at the wall, and I see the word community, and I heard Steve just say the word community 3 times. We live, teach, work, operate in the best community in Ohio. I love it here. I was born here, I was raised here. I was born in Idaho, but I went to the high school. My sister and I, my family, we all went through Gahanna schools. Now I've been here for 21 years. If you haven't been in the community very long, that word, it really speaks. So it's not just a word on a wall. It means something to the people who work, live, and breathe here. The second thing I wanted to say real quick was I need to thank indirectly the board, because when I have a cross-country team as large as I do at Middle School East, it's difficult to have coaches. It's difficult to have paid coaching up to a certain number. You get an assistant coach, but when I have large numbers and you spread middle school kids out over 4 miles, it's difficult to have 50 kids spread out over the community with 2 coaches watching. So when I asked for another coach, the board was like, what do we need to do to make this happen? And it was just gracious, and we can't thank you enough for the support that you give us. I mean, I've had children of yours on my team for years, and it's just one of those things where I wouldn't be comfortable doing what I do without support. So that's another part that's different, and that plays a big role in the story tonight. So on September 28th, I took my team to an event. We went to London, 45 minutes away. We meet in the morning like normal, and we get on the bus, and B2, Shifru, happens to be my driver that morning. Now, I didn't think much about that because there was nothing out of the ordinary about a bus driver picking up a bunch of kids. We go to the meet. He tells me, and on the way to the meet, we have a little banter back and forth. He's listening to some conversation I'm having with one assistant coach. Another assistant coach lives on the west side of Columbus, and he met us. So that's very important for what happened later. So he happened to meet us at the meet that day, while one assistant coach and myself were on the bus with B2. And the assistant coach and I were bantering back and forth, and B2's listening. You could see him looking in the mirror, and he would join in the conversation, and it wasn't inappropriate at all. It was just like he was having fun with us, okay? So I'm thinking in my head, I like this guy, because we can have conversation, and he gets it. He's with us. He's engaged. We were laughing. We were having like I met a friend on the bus, and I meet friends everywhere I go, but I met a friend. We go to the meet. He drops us off. He says, here's my number. When will you be done? I give an approximate time. The meet was so big that he had to park far away in order to, have room for other patrons or whatever. We get done with the meet, but at the very end of the boys' race, the girls had already raced. One of my girls started feeling ill. She ended up passing out, and she needed medical attention right away. Well, I've got 50 kids. I'm at the finish line seeing boys come across. I've got a girl that I watch pass out 100 feet from me. I don't really know what to do. We call the trainer. The trainer comes over. Trainer evaluates. I walk over. Trainer says, we're calling the squad right away. I'm not going to mess around with this. She's dehydrated. She's going to be fine, but she needs fluids. We're going to call the squad. So I'm thinking, okay, there's 3 coaches. There's 1 car who happened to drive. My other coach can take the kids back on the bus. The meet's wrapping up. He can get them back up. We collected our trophies, which was awesome. In the meantime, I have to get the kids together, put our tent away, get everything picked up, pick up the trash, make sure she's taken care of, call B2. B2 has the bus right where he says he's going to have the bus. He comes around, and in the meantime, the squad comes in. Now I have to ride with my girl Amanda in the squad to make sure she's not alone because her parents didn't make it to the meet that day. I get in the squad. Little do I know that B2's watching this whole thing happen. He's sitting on the bus watching the squad, watching my kids hug their teammate, watching me, apparently taking care of my girl who passed out. He's watching all this. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't get out of the bus. The kids are crying, and I said, "Guys, they're going to be okay." I prayed for the little girl, and just do what I do. We load up the bus. I don't even think I talked to B2. I get in the ambulance. My assistant coach gets in his car, meets me at the London County General Hospital, whatever that's called. My other assistant coach gets on the bus with B2 and goes back to Gahanna. I'm at the hospital. I'm at the hospital for, I don't know, probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. The assistant coach and I are there. He finally met us over there. He comes back to the room, and we're just talking to Amanda, making sure she's okay. Everything's fine. There's not one problem at all. She's getting her fluids. She's going to be fine. But now we've got to get back home. Luckily, my assistant coach happened to drive. Thank you for the third coach. That wouldn't happen if we didn't have a third coach. Remember that. We get in the car after about 2 hours of being in the hospital, about an hour and a half. I get a phone call just as we're leaving London. Now keep in mind, we're 45 minutes from Gahanna. I get a phone call and look at the phone, and it says a number that I think I recognize, but I answer it. And on the other end of the phone is B2. And I'm like, this is weird. So I as I answered, I put it on speakerphone so my assistant coach, Tyler, could hear. And B2 says to me, "I want you to know that I am on my way to drop the bus off in Gahanna, and I'm going to get in my car, and I'm going to drive back to London to pick you up. Because you went to the hospital with that little girl, and you're going to need a ride home." He didn't know that my assistant coach drove his car and met me at the hospital, and I was in the car with my assistant coach coming home. And the honest truth is, I started to cry, because that's what I do. Tyler is sitting next to me, and I've got tears coming down my face. And I said, "Well, B2, I'm in my car right now. I'm getting a ride home with my assistant coach." I said, "Well, that is the nicest thing you could ever say to me. Like, that is so awesome. Thank you for the offer of driving all the way back, but you don't need to do that because I'm in the car right now." And he said, "I saw the way you took care of that little girl, and I saw the way you loved your team, and I listened to the conversation that we had on the way. And I got to know the kind of person that you are just by that phone call or just by that ride." He said, "I'm a father. I have children. And if I would want my children to have you as their coach because of the way you treated that little girl, the way you treated your team." I'm literally crying. Tyler's next to me, and he's like, literally, Tyler's like, "What?" And I said, "B2, I don't know what to say other than, you're awesome. I think you're an awesome person. Thank you for caring and wanting to go out of your way to make sure that you took care of someone that was in your care." B2 didn't remember me walking up the stairs tonight.
I didn't remember it. But I remember that.
But he remembers what happened.
The phone call, yeah. I called him immediately as soon as I dropped the kids at the Middle School East, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I told him, I know I've seen the whole thing. I'm going to come drop the bus because I can't take the bus without authorization. So, but I can drive my car all the way there, bring you back here. And the weather is not really, it was good weather for running. Remember? We were talking about
perfect.
running.
Yeah.
Perfect day. But, spending his time and knowing that he is being a coach and a father, at the same time taking care of the child, I say the least I can do is, as a community, we have to help each other, So, nothing big, And what goes around comes around. So.
He says nothing big, but what this man doesn't understand is that I think your boss put it very succinctly, no small deed goes unnoticed, or at least it should not. I think we live in a cynical world. We live in a world where good deeds, they kind of go unnoticed sometimes. The bus garage, you get calls all the time. The bus was late. You missed my kid. You sideswiped a mailbox. That stop sign wasn't out. I know it wasn't out. But you very rarely get phone calls about people praising and thanking and saying, job well done. And I think as a community, a person who works and lives in this community, I think it's apparent, it's vitally inherent upon us to point out good deeds. So I don't want to take any more of your time. I wanted to share that story. It was important to me. I called Steve. I called the office. And about a week later, he got back to me. You've been a busy guy. And I said, I just think we need to make sure that B2 knows how much that meant to me and what it's going to mean to other people. Because when they hear about this or when they see our actions, we're supposed to lead by example. You led by example, and it made an impact on me. And I thank you for that, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thank you.
I always have to talk after that. Sorry. I should have known when I saw you on the agenda that I was going to need the box of tissues. Is Grace Marica here? She's not here, is she? Okay. So I think this is back on. I think I saw Sharon Tomko back there. Sharon's here for Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation.
Say I have to follow that, Lordy. But I'm grateful I was here tonight so that I could hear that story because that's so inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. That was really a great story. So I think the last time I came, I was talking about trunk or treat and saying, hey, stay away because it's going to be crazy down there. And when it was all over and we cleaned up, I looked at Trish and I said, we are never doing this again. Because it was perfect. It was awesome. All I can say, it was a perfect night weather-wise. Wonderful volunteers. All of the people that showed up, their trunks were fantastic. The community came out full force. There were so many kids. Everyone was in a great mood. It was fantastic. And I'll tell you, we've been reaping the benefits ever since. The reason we did Trunk or Treat is to raise awareness for the foundation. And at our first, at our Gahanna Gala kickoff meeting, we had so many new faces. And it was, we looked around and we were like, wow, how did we get all these people here? But again, it was raising awareness. It was such a fantastic night. So thank you. I know many of you volunteered for us. Steve showed up with on his face, just like I was. Oh my gosh. But it was a fantastic night. So thank you if you were there, if you contributed. So one last push for our Alumni Hall of Fame and Cornerstone Awards. So if you have someone you would like to nominate, please go to our website. Those nominations are due the end of December. And we really could use the nomination. So please think about who you can nominate. We are live for our Gahanna Gala 2020 ticket sales. So you can now purchase those tickets on our website. Again, the date is February 29th, Leap Day. So if you have a great burning desire to get those tickets, please do it now. There's a little incentive. If you buy your ticket before February 1st, you get free parking. So you want to do it before February 1st. And also raffle tickets are available. So you can get that from any building rep. So now I'm putting my workforce development hat on because I always like to give a little ditty on that too. We have a series of events scheduled for the first time this year that we're very excited about. December 12th, we're putting together a high school program showcase and workforce development partnership that is going to, we have about, right now, I think we have 15 businesses signed up. Our goal is 20. We have about 20 people from those 15 businesses. What we're going to do is walk through Gahanna Lincoln High School and Clark Hall and showcase our programs. Then we're going to come back and have roundtable discussions and just talk about what it is they saw that resonates with their business. If they have suggestions for us as far as what they see their business in the future, what is it going to look like, what we can infuse in our curriculum. So we're really excited about that, and that's December 12th. On February 5th, we're having a career fair. We're going to invite all of our seniors that don't have a plan. Our counselors are keeping notes for us of those seniors that aren't handing in college applications. The seniors that are coming in that don't really know what they want to do. And those are the seniors we're going to invite to this career fair. And we're going to have a bunch of businesses. Again, the trades will be very well represented. Also, certificated programs and 2-year programs. And we just want those kids to know what are the options that they can have once they graduate. So again, we're excited about that. And then March 18th, we put on that annual summer job fair. We've moved it up from April to March, and we target our sophomores and juniors for that. And I think that's it. I know I talked a lot. Sorry about that. I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving.
Let's see, is Liz Jaffe here for Gahanna? I knew I recognized you. I just couldn't connect the name. I'm sorry. From Gahanna Jefferson Education Association. And remind me which building you're in?
Jefferson Elementary. I am an English language teacher for K-4-5. I am joined by 2 other Jefferson teachers, our music teacher, Hannah Lamont, and our art teacher, Jenny Davison. I appreciate you guys coming. I'm kind of nervous to public speak, so it's always nice to have a little support from friends. I did want to give you a little bit about Jefferson. This is our first year with a full-time counselor, and this was honestly the best time for us to get a full-time counselor. We've had a lot of parent loss. Sorry. One of my students lost a parent. I've been with a student for 4 years. So having a counselor full-time has been great because they're able to go and talk with her. So I appreciate the board's support in getting a counselor at every elementary. So thank you for your help on that. Hopefully that's the only time I'll cry. We did want to, as an association, say thank you and congratulations to Burl and Daphne on your win. We're happy to see that you guys made it another round with us. I also wanted to let everyone know about Dwayne Marshall. He is a teacher at the high school, and he is actually running for the National Education Association to be on their board of directors. Currently, we only have 7 people on that board from Ohio, and he's running unopposed, so we're assuming he's a shoo-in. But he's been traveling all around the state, getting endorsed, talking with lots of communities and districts so he can advocate for Ohio. So it's kind of great to see somebody from Gahanna, Jefferson, going to those leadership steps. And then also GJEA is working with the district for donations for Grin. So we're doing like a dress down, so teachers can dress down every day for $2 a day, and all that money will go towards Grin. Last year we rose $11,000, and we're hoping that this year we can exceed it. And I know that we usually don't do it until after Thanksgiving, but the decision was made to do it before so we would have a little bit more time, could raise a little more money. So I think that was really smart, and I appreciate that choice. And that's all. Thank you, guys.
Did great. I don't think Mr. Metzbauer is here from the city, so we're going to move on to a report from Finance Committee. I do want to say to anyone who's sitting out there, please, at any time, if you You are more than welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting, but please don't feel awkward at all if you need to leave. I know sometimes people start to feel like they can't get up and go, but you can come and go whenever you need to. We are going to start with Finance Committee, and I think Ms. Mooring is going to give us a report out from Finance Committee, including,
I was going to do the 5-year.
you're going to wait and do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you can go ahead.
So I will report on the November 12th, last Tuesday's Finance Committee meeting. We had 3 items on the agenda. As always, we talk about the prior month's financials and review those as the first item of the agenda. And it's an easy discussion this year because our forecasting and our actuals are very, very on target. So our total receipts are year-to-date $43,747,000, and our total expenditures are $31,068, and we're within points of where we had projected to be. So that's always good news. Next, Treasurer Vasic had prepared a salary data comparative for us with other districts and then the state of Ohio for teacher salaries. So we reviewed that, and based on that table, we determined that one of the variables would be used for our 5-year forecast that we're going to be talking about later in the program in tonight's meeting. So that was very helpful to have that discussion. And then we had a robust discussion about the 5-year forecast and what assumptions and planning we wanted to do with regard to that forecast, which is due to be filed with the ODE by the end of November. So we'll talk about that in more detail later in the meeting. That's it.
Mr. Campbell, do you have a report from Policy and Governance Committee?
Short report. There were some items that actually one item that is back on this the current list in front of us today. The search and seizure policy that we discussed back in July is currently on this list. The information I have is that a copy of it was presented to the committee and the SROs. The officers gave it to their the police department to look over, and it is in line, and they do agree with the policy as it's written. So it is included tonight along with the other policies that we approved. Some of the policies that we did not approve obviously are still carrying over and getting changes and updates or getting more research. I think this past policy meeting was the one where we had the EpiPen discussion also. And I just want to, again, thank those the health professionals who were involved with that discussion and made a recommendation to not carry school-owned EpiPens in the buildings, and their reasoning was very sound, and they worked hard on it and put a lot of time and effort into it. So it was a good decision, and we could not have made that kind of decision without them. So thank you to them. That's all.
And that meeting was in
That was in October.
so Policy Committee meets next in
January, end of January.
Okay, Ms. Chrysler, do you have an update from Student Learning and Achievement?
Our next meeting is on the 26th, and our primary topic of discussion will be the high school program of studies. And so that's always a fun time to go through that program of studies and wish we were in high school again so we could take some of those fun classes and have some of those great options. And then did we make a decision yet on what our second topic will be? An update on foundation. So we had 2 topics that we were trying to choose from and decided that we would throw it back to Ms. Elliott and her staff to see which they had most updates for us that would be a meaningful discussion. So thank you.
I have one slip for public participation tonight. Michelle, did you have any other? You don't. Okay. So the one slip that I have is from Stephanie Wells. Is that you? Okay. Stephanie, I have if you want to come up to the podium, and then because you filled out the slip, you don't need to give me your address or anything like that, but I don't know if you've ever been here before for public participation. Okay. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. Thank you for coming. There's a button on that microphone, and I don't know if you were able to read the slip that you filled out at all, but usually public participation, we time it.
Oh, that's
Don't
fine.
let the timer make you anxious, though. So the timer goes, you'll get 3 minutes to address the board.
Sure.
And I usually explain it's not an interactive conversation. It's your opportunity to address the board.
Sure.
If there's follow-up that has to happen, usually that'll happen after the meeting. So either a board member will reach out to you or staff will follow up with you.
Sure. Okay.
And if you need more than 3 minutes, you can request additional time.
I don't think I will,
Okay.
but thank you for
All right.
that. I appreciate the information. Does my
You
time
are
start
welcome
now?
to get started,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, very good. So my name's Stephanie, and the reason that I have come today is because I wanted to briefly discuss the observation of the Veterans Day holiday. I'd also like to say that I had the pleasure of going to the Veterans Assembly at Chapel Field this year. My daughter is a kindergartner, so this is our first assembly, and it was wonderful. And I also got to bring my father, who's a Vietnam veteran, and it was incredibly meaningful and touching to him. So to see sort of my daughter and my dad together for that moment was really very special. The reason that I'm here, though, tonight is, one, to publicly acknowledge how special I think that was, and how I am very excited that the teachers are making Veterans Day special and teaching the kids, showing them to respect and pay homage to veterans on that day. Also, because I believe the step further from that is to acknowledge them with the day off of school. And I spoke to Mr. Bates, the principal at Chapel Field, about this, and he said that there would be an opportunity to look at the calendar, reply with feedback. And so when those calendars came out, that's what I did. And I wanted to take this opportunity to mention that I think that that is another important part of honoring veterans on that day. In my family, what we would do if my daughter was off of school would be to go with my dad to his local Veterans Day parade and be able to spend that day with him. And I know other kids with parents or grandparents or other family members would be able to spend time with them that day or acknowledge others in the community and be able to do that, hearing about what's important at school, but also with the action of this is important and this is why we would have this day. So that's all. I thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. I just wanted to bring that up tonight. So
We appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome to your first board meeting, and I guess welcome to the district as well.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I appreciate it. We're excited to be a part of this community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
And if there's anybody else who intended to address the board during public participation, I don't have a slip. So speak now or else I'm going to move on in the agenda. I don't think are there any additions, deletions, or anything to the agenda at all? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll move.
Mr. Campbell, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hairston, any discussion? Ms. White, do you want to call the roll?
Mooring,
Yes.
Delantonio,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
5-0, motion carries.
Thank you. We're on page 3, the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I just have a brief report tonight. We're excited about a new app that's been rolled out by Mr. Key and the Transportation Department. It's called, it's kind of a long title, it's been mentioned tonight, for an app, Here Comes the Bus. But what it'll enable parents and maybe older students to do is find out where their bus is. You can put in distance, and so within a 2-mile or 5-mile radius, so maybe on a cold day or a hot day, you can wait inside until the bus gets closer. And so Judy in Communications has designed, the drivers want you waiting for them outside, okay. So there's a flyer that's on Facebook and other social media outlets, and this is a really cool thing. So it's really easy. You just put in the Gahanna code 29231, and you plug your student's name in, and everything will work. So I think it's going to be a cool thing, and hopefully students will be waiting for their drivers when they come by. We're excited to meet with the City of Gahanna in their council chambers to talk with them about our enrollment study, and we're also going to do the same thing in Jefferson Township. We value our partnerships with both our city and our township, and we want them to know the ways we're growing. And as I've mentioned before, our enrollment study goes all the way through 2068. So I will be very old by the time, I hope. It's a very long study, and it's great. And it was done by Cooperative Strategies, which is a group that works in a lot of GIS spaces, and they're doing actually a very, very interesting project in Howard County, Maryland, that you can Google in the New York Times and other places. So we think that this study will help us. It's guiding our Master Planning Facilities Committee to develop options over time for Phase 2 of our Master Facilities Plan. So it's very, very helpful data. Also very proud of the new television show we have, Lincoln Live, 3 days a week, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A coterie of reporters and camera folks and editors get up very early to do this show, and I have seen actually reporters in the field at soccer games in places like Upper Arlington with cameras, and then the next day it's automatically uploaded to the show. Students watch it live in high school classrooms, and I think it's coming soon to Clark Hall. And it's been a great process, and I know the kids are working really hard. But I also want to thank Mark Lowry, who has done an outstanding job leading these students. It's really like a real news program, so it's exciting stuff. And it's not just the reporters, it's the writing, it's the editing, it's the camera work, and there's jobs in those fields. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I know a lot of people who work in the film industry. Not too many actors, but I know people who work behind the camera and do editing, and it's very lucrative. So it's been great to see, and the production quality is really, really good. We met today with our Master Planning Facilities Committee. We're going to meet again on December 3rd. We're looking at option development for elementary school growth, middle school growth, and a high school solution. And so we're working with Triad Architects. They put together some drawings and some cost figures. And so we're working through that process, and we'll update you soon as we approach the end of December, January. We're going to be going out and listening to folks in the community about a high school solution. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of option development, and hopefully we can get that done before the winter break, so we can have a couple engagement meetings and then finish up the engagement in January, and then have a solid Phase 2 plan sometime in mid-February. Those dates are fluid, but we would like to be able to present the board with an option for Phase 2 certainly by the May board meeting, if not sooner. But there'll be a lot of dialogue in between about that. Winter sports are in full swing. Great girls basketball game against Afrocentric the other night. A lot of talent on the floor, and really looking forward to our winter sports season altogether in all our sports. The high school had a great week recently on. It was a celebration of Green Dot, which is an upstander program to stop bullying at the high school level. There was all kinds of activities. There was a motocross exhibition and all kinds of different, fun things that kids were doing. So that was great to see. And now we started the dress down for Grin. All teachers and staff in the district will pay $2 a day if they want to participate, $44 by the Wednesday before the holiday break. And I think we've raised in the last 3 years, over $54,000. So it's been, and that number doesn't just include the dress down, but all the other things our schools do for Grin. And so there's lots of other fundraisers going on. And so we're excited about that. And I just want to thank our union president of GJEA, Jenny Palguda. That was her idea 3 years ago, and Grin really counts on it. I think Grin is helping more families than they ever have in their history. So that's a really cool thing. Also, we're very lucky to have a strong Gahanna Ministerial Association, and together churches have developed a Gahanna gift shop. So it used to be the fire department collected toys, Grin collected toys. Now our Gahanna Ministerial Association is doing it, and they're going to be open in December. I think it's Saturday, December 14th at Middle School West, Royal Manor, and Goshen Lane. And so they expect to get at least 2,000 toys, and they can't wait to serve families and our community. The pastor at Three Creeks Church, Joel Trainer, met with Judy and I, and Judy's going to be pushing out some information on Facebook and Twitter to help get the word out about that. So Veterans Day was talked about tonight, and that was a beautiful tribute. And I was able to go to the high school Veterans Day event, and we gave a diploma to another veteran. I always get so moved when we do that. So Gerald Greer fought in the Vietnam conflict. He left our high school and went into the war he went into the Army in 1961. He was a couple credits short of graduation. He was so humble, he didn't even tell his family about his service. Many of them found out the day he was given the diploma. And it was just a very, very moving experience. And I want to thank our executive assistant at Central Office, Kimberly, for driving that process. She's a veteran herself. She's very passionate about it, and it's always so moving to be able to present a diploma to somebody who went and served our country, and because of that, they weren't able to get their high school diploma. Really excited about a book study that Tia Holloman and Jill Elliott are leading on. It's called We Got This, and it's all about engaging kids and building relationships. And the book has just been really one of the best books on building relationships with students I've ever read. And I think there's over 200 teachers participating in this book study, and we're reading it as an administrative team. So kudos to Jill and Tia and their effort to get us thinking about student relationships. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe was just a fantastic play, and it was great. The sixth graders from all of our middle schools got to go and see it as a dress rehearsal during the school day. And I think they were just really, really excited. The set was magnificent, and it was just a great performance. And I know many of you got to see it as well. And I was able to, on Tuesday night, go and see our 6th and 9th grade orchestra. And one of my favorite things about our music program is when students so sixth graders were on the stage as the ninth grade orchestra was playing. And, you know, when I see that, I can just imagine what these sixth graders are thinking. They may be thinking, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to play like that. And then Mr. Dango always talks about practicing and continuing with your instrument and sticking with it, and you'll sound just like this. And the ninth graders sounded magnificent, and so did the sixth graders. And there's a concert tonight. Maybe we'll be able to catch the end of, hopefully. But it's amazing when we put, you know, a couple hundred kids on the stage to see accomplished musicians that were just like them a few years ago, because it is really about hard work and practice. So it's such a cool thing to see. I'm going to turn it over to Jill Elliott, and she's going to talk about calendar committee and a PD we had on November 8th, PD session.
Mm-hmm. I will be brief. We had an extremely successful PD day on November 8th. It started with a keynote for the entire district on trauma-informed care, followed by many breakout sessions, 1 and 2 hours, centered around our theme of equity and access for all. So I shared a little bit about it earlier in the year in some of the planning stages, but we had sessions on de-escalation in the classroom. We had an excellent poverty simulation. It was, the staff really enjoyed that. Implicit bias, best practices for supporting EL students in the classroom, just a wide range of offerings. And PDEC had a chance to get together last week and look at the feedback, and it was glowing. Most indicators in the in the 90s, mid 90s, as far as favorable responses. So it was definitely a positive day, and we will be replicating those sessions in January. So staff members got to select the sessions that they attended in November. They got to select their sessions for January as well. And then we also have about 40 staff members that chose to participate in the independent study option. So that they're doing work with an independent group throughout the year. So we were excited about that. The calendars are on the agenda this evening for approval. I shared a little bit about that process last month also. It's been a very extensive process. We had around 30 committee members, a very similar process to last time. We started with looking at pros and cons from current and past calendars. What are the desires of the committee members? Liz is on the committee. We, of course, took a look at the parameters we had to work within, certain number of school days and things like Good Friday off per bus driver contract and such. And then from the wishes of the committee, 4 different calendar options were created. And we had lots of healthy discussion around what we liked about the options, what we didn't, what we might want to tweak. And so we were able to vote as a committee and narrow it down to the 2 calendars that were presented to the community. You probably had a chance to look at them. They were very similar, subtle differences primarily around the first day of school, the PD day in January, and then what the long weekend kind of looks like in February. I do have a spreadsheet and had a chance to go over the full process with Jenny Palguda today also, just to kind of let her know how things played out. And we had 1,444 participants complete the survey for the calendar, and we landed on option 1. And so what I did from there was just replicate that model for the 21-22 and 22-23 school years. When you take a look at the calendars, of course, there's some adjustment that has to happen because of, this is a leap year, and so our days are off a little bit. Good Friday shifts quite a bit. One thing that I'll point out, if you didn't notice it, is at the end of the year, there's a really long stretch between April and May. And so we did have a day off added in there to break up for just the social emotional and just, the stamina, so that it wasn't a full 7 weeks of instruction. So then that was able to kind of be replicated in the following calendars. So I appreciate everyone's work on the committee. And the calendars, I believe, are in the folder. There aren't so many colors in the final calendars. Just wanted to color code them so everyone could see what the days were, but I think we're good to go. one last note on the calendars. For the 21-22 and 22-23 school years, there's a note that they're subject to change per possible negotiations, updates that might be put into contracts, and also we never know what the state's going to do with the testing schedule. But for the most part, the breaks and the start and end time, shouldn't be adjusted too much. And then we also had lots of discussion about observing other religious holidays. And we took a look at all of the, the holidays laid out across the year. And so because of when those dates fall and how they change each year, it was really tough for the committee to kind of work those in. However, we did make the note, and we'll be sharing with staff also that, we'll be asking staff to be mindful of all religious holidays when they're planning instruction and assessment throughout the year. So we did have some discussion about that and look for options on how to include that.
I have a couple questions about the calendar,
Sure.
but I don't know if anyone else does. Okay. So just, I guess, mostly for the purpose of anyone else who's interested, can you talk a little bit about who's on that calendar committee and how those people came to be on that committee?
So we have a parent and a teacher representative from every building, and the principals worked with parents to solicit volunteers or individuals that would be interested. We did work hard to make sure we had male and female representation, we had representations from various races and ethnicities so that we could just be mindful of the demographics of our community. And then we also had 3 administrators, as well as the teachers' unions selected 3 additional teachers to be a part of that committee.
And then the other question that I have about the committee, and maybe I can't remember if we talked about this before or not, but I think the most common question that comes to me as a board member about the calendar is related to the start date. And I know that the ultimately in the survey, the 2 calendars that were presented for people to provide feedback on, they didn't really vary in when that start date was. So I guess, can you talk a little bit about what was the calendar committee's conversation
Discussion
about
around
that? Yeah.
Sure. Definitely we had lots of discussion about the later start date. And when I poured through the comments from the survey, there were over 500 comments. That was the most common comment that I read. I did some color coding. But essentially we discussed that, pushing back the start date then impacts semesters for students, and, families have expressed in the past, my kid has to study all over winter break for exams if we aren't able to finish up that semester before the holiday break. And we just had lots of discussion around the impact on kids and families. And unfortunately, bumping it back doesn't, allow us to finish before the semester. So we did have a calendar option that included starting a week later. And then when we kind of had discussions and did the voting, it just didn't end up as a front runner from the committee.
I understand this because I know
Sure.
we've talked about this before, and I think we talked about it the last time we actually voted on calendars. But again, since it is the most common question that comes up, when you're talking about finishing a semester, I think what you're talking about is mostly at the high school so that students don't have to go on winter break and then come back after break to
Correct.
finish the rest of the semester, but starting the calendar when we do in the middle of August allows high school students to completely finish the semester
Correct.
before going on break.
And it also impacts just at the end of the school year as well. As you bump the year back, then we're coming back for one day after Memorial Day, and we've gotten a lot of feedback on that as well. So it's just kind of meshing all the desires together in the best possible way. We had conversations about bumping the start date back, but then that would put us into June, and nobody wanted to go in June. So, it's just kind of when you see the reality of it all out on paper, it doesn't always work out the way we think it will. But when we come back to the table again to do calendars again, we can have discussion about, maybe as a committee, that's just what we do. We offer one that's the typical start and one that's later, and we kind of see how that shakes out. We can have conversations about that.
And then I guess, again, just for clarity, because we talked about this last time, this cycle this calendar committee decided to do something different, which I think will be good for our community, and actually present the board with 3 years worth of calendars so that when you meet again in 2 years, there still will be a
We
calendar.
always have a year
Yeah.
done.
I know. I
in advance.
appreciate that because that's one of the other most common kinds of things
Questions.
that comes, at least to me as a board member, is, oh my gosh, there's no calendar,
There's no calendar
out there.
yet.
When are you guys voting to approve?
Right,
So
and I know it impacts the things that the city does
it
as well.
definitely does. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Any questions or comments from anyone else?
So
Did you-
that concludes my report. Excellent job on engaging the community, Jill, on the calendar. I know it's not easy. There's a lot of, once you see it on paper, I think things become clear, but it's really difficult to have exams after the holiday. I've been in, I've worked in school districts with calendars like that, and nobody's happy about studying, over the break. So thank you for all your hard work on that, Jill.
Yeah, thank you. I know that is not an easy thing to balance all of those various interests and strong feelings. But I guess the other thing I want to say now that you've concluded and I'm still talking about it is thank you for the robustness with the committee itself, because that also has been something over the years that, again, at least I have heard from parents is there's nobody representing me. There's nobody representing my voice, providing any input on that committee. So it sounds like it's a pretty good representation from the community. So
I didn't
appreciate
mention
that.
we also tried to get stay-at-home parents as well as working parents so that we had different perspectives.
Yeah, thank you.
I have lots of charts and averages and numbers and color codes and comments if you want to see them.
I have no doubt. Okay, so we're going to move on to the treasurer's report. Ms. White, did you have anything?
Take care of it.
Okay, Ms. Mooring, are you going to do the 5? You're going to, okay.
Yes. So we have a PowerPoint.
Maybe.
And as they're pulling it up, we'll just summarize by saying this 5-year forecast that we're going to review and vote upon tonight looks very different than previous forecasts. And there are many reasons for that. In my comments, I'll share the struggles of revenue constriction, the realities of major expenses that form the core of our purpose, and the programming changes necessitated by our society, along with technology. So we need to keep in mind, we are coming into this forecast building with probably more information than ever before, with the enrollment study, with the long-term technology plans that we have, the curriculum plan, communication plan. We just have a lot more information that we are able to use, which is awesome. A newer need is the increased cost of dealing with the social and emotional trauma that Liz kind of referred to earlier. You will recall that we added 3 full-time counselors, right, to have one at every elementary school. And we've also added 2 assistant principals, and that all relates to the social and emotional needs of our students. Because we believe that we must meet the students where they are and address issues that will keep them from learning. So we'll talk first about the revenue, and I'm sorry it's not printed for you all out there, but we have, I think, some of the information on the PowerPoint here. Revenue increases in fiscal year 20 and 21, thanks to the voters supporting the 2018 levy. However, even with the additional revenue, our total revenue averages of 0.88% per year in our forecasted years 20 through 24 does not cover the increase in expenses, which is 3.2 annually, as Treasurer Vasic shared last Tuesday. So he also shared with us in the past, our total revenue per pupil has lagged revenue of similar districts as well as the state average, and is still less than both, even with our 2019 levy. Our Gahanna Jefferson per pupil revenue is $12,102,
Similar districts are at 12,914, and the state's at 13,879. So that impacts our ability to cover our expenses. Our second largest source of revenue is controlled by the state of Ohio, and that is our unrestricted grants and aid. And while it's almost $16 million in fiscal year 20, you see it does not really offer even an inflation-adjusted increase over the 5 years projected. Gahanna is a cap district, and that means that our property values and our income potential from our community is so high that the state penalizes us or reduces their investment in our kids by $4.3 million a year, approximately. So it's still our second largest source. And then the third largest source is our all other revenues line, and it's various sources of income, but the major one is the income we receive from the city of Gahanna in lieu of property tax abatements and TIF payments, and that has been approaching $10 million, which is significant. And as Steve said earlier, we really appreciate the partnership we have with the city and the township, as that is our third highest revenue contribution. Now we'll shift to expenses, and I'm going to kind of give this a subhead of all good things must come to an end. In personal services, which is our largest line item, and that includes our wages, it's our district vision is to build relationship with students, parents, and the community to ensure that student learning is our most important investment and priority. Well, those relationships are with people, and that is our line item there. The 5-year forecast being reviewed tonight and uses a state average of the 2018 negotiated teacher wages across Ohio. And that's to provide directional support for this forecasting exercise. We do understand that, with union negotiations and things like that, that will probably change, but for purposes of our forecasting, we are using that average of 2.31% per year. I think we all recognize that teachers are our greatest asset, and the pool of teachers is shrinking, so we need to remain competitive to capture the best. I think we also look back over a 10-year period, and our teachers have had an average raise of 1.3% over that time period, whereas our Columbus region has been at 1.89% and the state average at 1.71. So kind of gives us a positioning as we approach this forecast. The next largest expense is healthcare, and that's in the benefits line item. So for over 15 years, we were lucky because we paid well below market for employee health insurance as a self-funded plan. And a rough calculation is we benefited from over $1 million in premium savings during that time. However, the district tried to keep health care increases to a minimum, but an unusual jump in catastrophic claims depleted the health care reserve and created a need to increase funding on both the employee and the board side. In fact, we had to make an infusion of cash to pay the claims. So our all-in expense related to health care is about $4.2 million. Again, we believe health care is an important part of doing business, and we need to keep their costs affordable and competitive to recruit and keep great teachers. As we all know, our insurance committee, comprised of teachers, classified staff, and administrators, rose to the occasion and converted from a self-funded plan to the traditional health care plan with Medical Mutual. They increased premiums, co-pays, and added deductibles. So for the first 2 fiscal years in the 5-year forecast that we're looking at, we have known contracted expenses that we are built in, and then for years 3 through 5, a 9% increase per year is forecasted. The next category to talk about is supplies and materials and capital outlay. And these two line items are impacted, really because of our enrollment growth right? Also by the cost of operating some of our ancient buildings and technology, right? So we are working towards managing those costs, but all of those things combine to really put a damper on how much you can manage them with the enrollment growth. And I think it's interesting from a technology standpoint, we need it for state testing. Our students need to learn to be relevant in the majority of industries where they will find employment. And if you think back, and I look back, over 10 years ago, this budget item was less than $1 million. For fiscal year ended 19, it's going to be $3.7 million, and that's pretty much the flat number going forward. So technology has really become a big piece of a school district budget. And then I think I've covered enrollment, so I'm pretty good there. So our conversation last Tuesday at Finance Committee then turned to, this is a great, you want to, yeah, let's do this. So this is a graph that Steve had included in his presentation to us last Tuesday at Finance Committee. But as you can see, our revenues are the blue line, and our expenses are the red line. Our cash balance is the green line, and our 60-day cash on hand is the, is it purple? Purple line. Can't see that well from over here. So you can see our goal is to have 60-day cash on hand. That was a fiscal principle that we talked about several years ago, and it's a good financial responsibility position to be in. However, you can see that we never have, based on our current structure, this is without any additional revenue, we never meet that and fall out of the graph, to be quite honest. So as a board, we had a great conversation and said, what does it take to actually fulfill our desire to have a 60-day cash on hand reserve, as well as the needs of the enrollment growth and the programming cost. And so that comes to a $6 million ask that we would ask our community for in 2020, fall of 2020. So because, remember the beginning of this, 76.4% of our revenues come from local sources, sadly, that is where we must look to raise the additional monies needed to fulfill those requests. So that is why it's a very different 5-year forecast than we've had previously, right? Because we've always just tried to provide enough millage to get us out of a hole, and then we are in a 2-year or 3-year cycle of stress and have no money available for things like a healthcare crisis that, had we had 60 days cash on hand, it wouldn't have been a crisis. So looking at that response. Since last Tuesday, I did do a survey of other local districts, and I laid on your table there tonight. And it really varies by district. Upper Arlington has a board policy that 60 days cash on hand must be maintained. So it is included as a matter of fact in their 5-year forecast. There are 2 other ones that I provided there. I can't find that sheet right now if you don't want. And I have the supporting documentation if anybody wants to look at it. Hilliard does not carve out reserves, but in their notes they reference maintaining a 60-day cash on hand. I thought it was interesting that in fiscal year 16, that was at their levy year, it had just under 90 days cash on hand going into a levy cycle. Okay. And their current forecast goes from a high of 120 days cash on hand to 70 days at the end of the 5-year time frame. I shared about Upper Arlington. Worthington City School District puts right in their notes that they fund a contingency reservation. They don't call it reserve. They call it a contingency reservation. And it was established by the Board of Education to plan for extraordinary events beyond the control of the district's normal operation. And it is to be used by the district in consultation with the board. And that was from a note in their ODE forecast submission. And their numbers flat for fiscal years 21 through 25 at $21.6 million. Dublin does something similar to Hilliard. It provides it in the note, and their cash balance never goes below $35.8 million for the 60 days needed cash on hand. So they're doing it, but not formalizing it in the line number. So I thought that might be helpful for board members as we go on. So that is the presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
One clarification, one maybe clarification question, and then also just a comment. Just the clarification for other revenue with respect to the monies that are coming in from the city. Some of that is compensation from the revenue sharing agreements for tax abatement, but some of that also is coming directly from the county, and it's diverted tax revenue that we would have otherwise received had the TIF not existed. So it's not necessarily just a payment, and that's what we discussed in the Finance Committee, is that it's not necessarily just a payment from the city based on that relationship. It's just, it might also be the pilot payments that are coming in from the county that are going through that fund. So we talked about whether or not...
It's related to development, though?
It's really just because the TIF district exists in that area, and so we talked about in the Finance Committee meeting, and I went back to listen to the tape again to make sure that that was correct and double check it. But when you have a TIF district, there's no incentive, and it's not compensation coming from the city of Gahanna. It's just that that tax money is being paid into a different fund, and then it gets paid to the school district from a different fund. And so it's been coming through our books as other funds, not necessarily as property taxes, but it's really the same thing. And so that's that conversation that we had about should that be in a different line item, because it's really not a payment from the city of Gahanna. It's just diverted property taxes through the TIF fund.
That's why I tried to make it through TIFs or whatever.
So I think that some of them might not be from the city of Gahanna. It just might be from that TIF fund from the county, and it doesn't even pass through the city of Gahanna. So just clarification, just for the matter of record. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, this is more of a question, but when Mr. Vasic presented us with the overall average for our teachers compared to others, that did not include furlough days. Is that correct? Okay, so that's something, too, that I think we determined that it was difficult to plug that in and have an apples-to-apples comparison, and the only way that he could give us a true apples-to-apples is if we just looked at only rates, not necessarily including furlough days. And so I think that's something too important, is to let the community know that that 10-year look that he gave us was really just one piece of what's been happening financially.
Yeah, I don't think it included step freezes either. I think it was just base raises.
That's right.
Yeah. So the question is, do the other districts that reported include those too? So it's really...
It's hard to determine.
Right. We have to use it as just a guidepost, not a stop sign.
That's right. I think that was a good...
So those numbers came from CERB. Yeah. So those are accurate numbers. They're not all inclusive.
Right. And I think it's good to have, I think to your point, we have had more information in this 5-year forecast than we've had in a long time. And so to have that information, but just be transparent about the fact that we don't know what those numbers necessarily are. And then I guess the last thing I would just say is, part of what I personally as one board member feel about this forecast is that the $6 million ask doesn't mean that we're going to go out and just because we put it in the forecast that we're going to go out for a $6 million levy. We're just saying that this is an aspirational forecast. It's letting the community know that if we want to abide by our fiscal policies, we want to have emergency cash on hand, and we want to be prepared. This is what it's going to take to do that, and I think that is an important clarification.
I think the two things Daphne talked about, in addition to that, to keep in mind is our increased costs with growth in enrollment, but also increased costs with mental health services that we're providing so that our kids can learn at a high level. We're seeing more and more students struggle with anxiety, depression, mental health, and so the addition of the counselors, you heard it tonight, has been extremely helpful. And our 2 assistant principals that we added have been extremely helpful as well. And so, the board's willingness to support that is not just important in the short term; it's important in the long term that we continue to invest in mental health, because mental health and cognition and learning are inextricably linked. You can't learn fractions if you are suffering from lots of anxiety. And so we're seeing a lot of really positive things in our schools from that decision. And we did cost-benefit analysis. We really thought about it and talked about it and weighed it over and against other options of things that we needed. So I think Jill and her team and Lisa Kelly and their work on that is extraordinary. And I think we're investing in that as much as any district I know. So I'm very proud of that, because I think it's going to help our kids in the long run. Thank you.
Emil, did you have a?
I do. I just wanted to comment on regarding the cash on hand, the principle of having operational cash on hand, and I think I fully support the decision of the board and the treasurer's office to go ahead and put the full millage and present to the public exactly what's going to take to get to that goal within a reasonable amount of time. It's a lot like saying you want to run a marathon, but you don't, how long is it going to take me to get in shape for a marathon? And you really want the trainer to tell you exactly what you have to do to get to that, and within a certain amount of time. You don't want to run a marathon in 10 years. You want to run a marathon in 2 years. And so this principle of cash on hand, first, our constituents really need to review it and decide whether that emergency savings account is something they believe that is a good thing for our school district to have. It appears to be sound fiscal policy for us, but it really is the constituents, the voters. They're going to have to decide, yes, we want you to have an emergency savings account, savings fund for when, if things go, if we have trouble and we have to continue maintaining and operating the school districts for a short period of time. And I think it's being very honest with the voters. The $6 million, I believe, puts us at around, I don't want to guess, around 23 is when we hit the 60 days. We'll get it rolled out. We'll get it rolled out on paper. I don't want to guess that, certainly on tape, but I just want to say that we have a lot going on, a lot of exciting things that are going to be going on in the community over the next couple of years. The high school solution, finally putting the new Lincoln Elementary build out there, discussion about whether another elementary school in the next 5-7 years is going to be needed out east. A lot of those kinds of conversations, and it's time to make some decisions and really ask the voters, what do you want? And I feel confident that that it's the right thing to do to put it in front of them in 2020.
Submit in May and October. So in May, I think Steve alluded to the master facilities, we're going to have a lot more information. So we can refine, this is just our best approach to meeting what we know now, right? So we can continue refining. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, were you going to say something? Oh. I just want to reiterate, and unfortunately Mr. Vasic is not here tonight, but I want to, convey a message from the board to the entire treasurer's staff and to our entire central office staff who put the work into building this forecast. This is a forecast that is very different from the kind of forecast that we saw, for example, Ms. Mooring, when we first came onto the board. And I mean, over the course of the 4 years, just the progress that has been made in reaching out to all of the departments, gathering the best information that's available, having that open dialogue, breaking down some of the silos that we had. And I know, from my perspective, I know how much work goes into that and how sometimes those conversations are really difficult, but I know I very much appreciate having a 5-year forecast that is actually reflective of what is currently going on and what we think will be going on. It provides just a tremendous amount of comfort as a board member to know that what we're looking at really reflects what our values are and where the district thinks it's going. So I just want to say thank you, I guess, to everybody. And I know there's a lot of people who spent time and energy putting it together. Did you want to say something?
Just wanted to thank Daphne.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, you're not on.
Just want to thank Daphne for her work on this. We met a couple times, and it's amazing the things you remember that from finance meetings, the numbers you keep in your head. So, thank you for your work on this. It was a thorough presentation, and Steve Vasic, our interim treasurer, would have done it, but he's not here tonight. And so, thank you, Michelle, for your help and helping Daphne and get the data. So, I thought it was very well done.
Okay, we are on letter C, financial business, and there are 5 items for action. If there's no objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items 1 through 5 under letter C?
So moved.
Ms. Mooring, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Chrysler, any discussion about any of these items? Any additional discussion about any of these items?
I'm just excited about the ASL club. That's pretty cool.
That is
It's-
cool. It is
cool.
I'm just excited about
It
that.
is exciting.
Yes, it's really grown, the program. So
Yeah. Ms. White, do you want to call the roll?
Yes.
Mooring,
Yes.
Antonio,
Yes.
Campbell,
yes,
Chrysler.
Yes.
5-0, motion carries.
We are on educational pupil programs and services. If there's no objection to taking those 4 items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 4 under letter D?
I'll move.
Mr. Campbell, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Chrysler, any discussion? Okay, Ms. White, you want to call the roll?
Chrysler,
Yes.
Hairston,
Yes.
Mooring,
Yes.
Antonio,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes,
5-0, motion carries.
We're on page 5 now, human resources, and there are 22 items for action. If there is no objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 22 under letter E?
I'll move.
Ms. Chrysler, is there a
Second.
Mr. Hairston? I'm just looking, where is do we have on here the contract with our, I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to take yourself out of that vote, Mr. Campbell. And I don't know where it is. It's here in general business. Okay, I'll get there. So, sorry, I kind of took us off track, but I think the motion was from
Me.
Jennifer.
Ms. Chrysler, and the second was from Mr. Hairston. Is there any discussion about the items under letter E, human resources? Okay, Ms. White, do you want to call the roll on letter E?
Campbell,
yes,
Chrysler,
Yes.
Hairston,
Yes.
Mooring,
Yes.
Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
5-0, motion carries.
Thank you. We're now on page 13. Letter F is general business. Okay, so I don't think you want to abstain from the entire general business section, right? You just want me to pull out item number 2? I'll just pull it out. So, Ms. White, I'm going to take, I don't know, do I need a motion to separate out item number 2 from general business? I probably need that motion. Okay. So before I do anything else, could I get a motion to separate out item number 2 under letter F, general business?
Move.
Ms. Mooring, and is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hairston? Any discussion about separating out item number 2 from general business? Okay, Ms. White, can you take the roll on that motion?
Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
Campbell. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Chrysler.
Well,
Yes.
you can just
Harrison?
note that he abstained
Yes.
from
Yes.
that vote, yeah.
You can say abstain. Yeah.
Harrison.
Yes.
Mooring.
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Thank you. Sorry, we threw you a little curve, Michelle.
I appreciate that. Nothing like learning on the job.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion on items number 1, 3 through 13. 1 and 3 through 13 we'll do first. So is there a motion to approve items number 1 and numbers 3 through 13 under letter F, general business?
I move.
Mr. Hairston, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Chrysler? Any discussion about items number 1 or items number 3 through 13? Any additional discussion, because we've talked about a lot of these items already. Okay, Ms. White, do you want to take the roll on that?
Pickle Antonio.
Yes.
Chrysler.
Yes.
Hairston.
Yes.
Mooring.
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Oh, he can.
I can
he's
vote on
gonna
that.
vote
He
on
can
that
vote-
one.
Oh, that's right.
And I'll
Sorry.
vote yes.
Okay, got it. 5-0, motion carries.
Did you want to say something, Ms. Chrysler?
I think the next vote, if there is going to be anybody, I think you still have to call the name,
Yeah.
but then
He
you
has
need
to
to physically
abstain,
say
right.
verbally say abstain.
Just let me know when you're ready. Yeah, we have to
We need to
vote
vote on
on
number
number
two.
2. No, I
Okay.
separated it out. It was a vote just to separate it, because we had to make this extremely procedurally complicated for Michelle. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve item number 2 under letter F, general business?
I move.
Ms. Chrysler, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hairston? Any discussion about item number 2 under letter F? Is there anything that you wanted to say, Mr. Barrett?
It was a really good process negotiating with the aides. What you'll see in this contract is we increased their overall hours by 1 hour. And so they're going to be working a 7-hour day, and that's going to be extremely beneficial to our students and our teachers. Many of these aides are just so important in the daily classroom work, especially as it relates to special education students and supporting their needs. So we have a lot of trouble finding aides and we also added a step after year 20 in the contract. Do you remember, Jill, what the exact year is? But what we wanted to do is invest in them in the long term, and we hope many of them make it to year 20 plus so that they can earn that step. I think it might be 22. And at the end of the day, they do great work for us, and we need more of them. And Sue Wigging, our special education director, and our HR director spend a lot of time working to find aides. So when we get good ones, we want to keep them. So this is a 2-year deal with a reopener on wages and benefits in the second year. Thank you.
Thanks. Any additional discussion? Okay, Ms. White, will you call the roll on item number 2 under letter F?
Antonio,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Hairston,
Yes.
Mooring,
Yes.
Campbell.
Abstain.
4-0, motion carries.
Thank you. Where are we? We are on board reports and discussions. I'll try to be as quick as I can with the legislative update. And then I think we also have an update from, no more additional. Okay, so we'll just do a legislative update. I'll try to be as quick as I can. So let's see. I'm going to start with Senate activity. So the Senate amended and passed a House Bill number 2, which is a bill that permits a collaboration of school districts, among others, to partner with industry sectors in order to be eligible for state grants to assist with hiring employees, developing curriculum and educational resources, and marketing workforce partnerships. Although the Senate passed that House bill, they made some amendments, and ultimately, so the way that a bill works, it then has to go back to the House because it was their original bill. The House did not concur with those amendments, so that bill is going to conference committee to work out the differences between the House and Senate's version of the bill. And when something goes to conference committee, it really means that anything can happen. So I'm not going to talk any more about that bill until after it comes out of conference committee. In the House, a bill was passed, House Bill 164, by a vote of 61 to 31. That is a bill that you may have read about in the newspaper. I think there was a Dispatch article about it. It's a bill that was originally introduced in the 131st General Assembly, which was in the 2015-17 General Assembly year, but then it never went anywhere. It was reintroduced in this General Assembly. That is a bill that, if passed, it would require a few things. Number one, it would require public schools to give students who wish to meet for the purpose of religious expression the same access to school facilities given to secular student groups. That is not something that would be a change in the law, nor a change for the district, but that would be codified in that bill. Number two, it would remove a current provision that permits a school district to limit the exercise of expression of religion to non-instructional time periods. So that is something that would be a change. Number three, it authorizes students who are enrolled in public schools to engage in religious expression before, during, and after school hours. Number four, it would prohibit public schools from restricting a student from engaging in religious expression in the completion of homework, artwork, or other assignments. And then number five, it would prohibit public schools from rewarding or penalizing a student based on the religious content of the student's homework, artwork, or other assignments. Like I said, that bill passed. It was a House. It originated in the House. It passed out of the House. It is now headed over to the Senate. The House also passed a House Bill 210. That is a bill that requires that would require the Ohio Department of Education, licensed preschool programs, and other entities to screen and test prospective employees for tuberculosis and annually test certain employees for a 5-year period. That's a bill that is also now headed over to the Senate. And then the House also passed House Bill 17, which would exempt $50,000 of a home's appraised value from taxation for the spouse of a police officer, a firefighter, or other emergency worker who is killed in the line of duty. That dollar amount still will go to the district, but it would be coming from state funds rather than local funds. Then there's a couple bills that I'm going to mention that are still in committee. The committee, or in the House Finance Committee, there was a 5th hearing held on House Bill 305, which is the Cupp-Patterson school funding bill. I don't honestly know where, I don't think anyone knew where that was going when it was first introduced, but even more today, I would say. There's no way to know where that's going. The Speaker of the House gave some comments, I think, yesterday to a reporter. So one of the things that Speaker Householder said, not yesterday, but a couple days before that, was that he thought that nothing might change until the next budget bill. But then yesterday, he kind of made some comments that contradicted the work that has gone on in that committee to build a formula. And what Speaker Householder said is that maybe we should just take all of the local tax dollars and have them go to the state, and then the state can hold that money and redistribute it. So I don't know exactly what he meant by those comments. I don't know if he has a new approach in mind that he plans to introduce in different legislation. But I would just say I don't think anyone can predict, as usual, what might happen with school funding. Another bill that is still in committee is House Bill 111. That's a bill that would require public and private schools to transmit a transferred student's record within 5 school days. That was a third hearing that was held on that bill. House Bill 310 is a bill that would enact the Ohio Anti-Bullying and Hazing Act with regard to discipline and bullying policies at public schools and colleges. That's a bill that had, I guess, also its third hearing in the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee. And then House Bill 333 is a bill that prescribes specific contract requirements for agreements between public schools and third parties that provide digital student record storage, management, and retrieval. That bill just had its first committee hearing in that same House Primary and Secondary Education Committee. There's 2 more. I'm going to be quick. House Bill 322 had a second hearing in committee. That is a bill that would revise the Ohio Teacher Residency Program so that basically it would go back to local districts to make decisions about performance. And then finally, House Bill 367, that's a bill that would require ODE to make recommendations for job descriptions for school counselors. There are a couple other education-related bills that are pending. None of the bills that I talked about are top priority bills for either the House or the Senate. So I don't know what, I think that that first bill that I talked about, that House Bill 2, that one might actually get passed in conference committee, but other than that, I'm not sure where any of the rest of this is really going. So are there any other items from any other board members?
One bill or one law that superintendents and school districts are looking at very closely, it's causing a lot of distress, is the Ed Choice voucher. I think some 400 plus school districts are being affected. And so what happens is, school districts get a certain amount of money from the state, and then most school districts have local revenue. Almost all school districts have local revenue voted in to pay the balance. What the Ed Choice law is causing is school districts that don't succeed in the way the state prescribes on the report card, then students in a particular school can transfer to another school, a parochial school. And so if you take Cleveland Heights as an example, that's a district that could lose up to $9 million because it's in an area where there's lots of parochial schools. And so, for instance, Cleveland Heights High School, I think, had an 89.4 graduation rate. They've really improved a great deal. They almost got to 90. Well, there's a lot of Orthodox Jewish schools and Catholic schools in that area. And so kids that are already going to those schools could get funding paid for from the school district because of this law. So we had a robust discussion at our superintendent's meeting on Wednesday, and it's very distressing. And I know some lawmakers are working on it because they don't agree with it. It's a bill that's sponsored by Matt Huffman in the Lima area, and it's very concerning. So we'll keep our eyes on that. I think you'll see a lot in the news about that.
Anything else from anyone else? Yeah.
Should have brought it up when we voted on it, but it was very sad to have Stephanie Lauka leave.
Yes.
And we voted on her resignation tonight, but she's bigger, better places, but what a true professional she was as our HR director.
I echo that, and she, in her first week in office, she was on TV, so she was outstanding, and we'll miss her a great deal. We'll stay in touch. But thank you for mentioning that.
So not to be cryptic, Ms. Lauka accepted a position as the new executive director for the state medical board, and that's why she left the district. So obviously a really important job, and I think we all wish her well in that. But yeah, I think the article in the paper was her day 3 on the job, where she was on television and having to deal with the press. Day 3.
So, not to out anybody, but Jill texted her and said, "Do you want to come back?"
Is there a, so we're going to take, so normally we would be adjourning the meeting, but I've got a motion on here to go into executive session. I'm going to take the motion first, I guess, and then I'll explain that we are going to go back into session after executive session. But before I get ahead of myself, is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to revised code 121.22G1 for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation, of charges or complaints against an employee, official, licensee, or student, unless the employee, official, licensee, or student requests a public hearing?
So moved.
Ms. Mooring, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Campbell, any discussion about that motion? Okay, Ms. White, can you take the roll?
Mooring,
Yes.
Pickle Antonio,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Hairston.
Yes.
5-0, motion carries.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and then the board is going to go into executive session. We plan to be taking board action after executive session. We will be coming back into public session and taking board action. So you are all more than welcome to stay around while we're in executive session. I have to excuse you all from the room because you are not invited into our executive session, but you're more than welcome to stay around and rejoin us when we go back into public session. I don't know how long we'll be in executive session for. But before we go into executive session, we're going to take about a 10 or 15 minute break so Ron can get his equipment cleaned up.